Okay. Morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Dave Shaw, Chair of the Licensing Subcommittee. I would like to welcome you all to today's Licensing Subcommittee meeting. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting that the public can attend. Before we commence, I would like to outline the domestic arrangements for the meeting. We're not expecting a fire practice today. If the alarm sounds, please leave the chamber, then turn right and proceed down the stairway and through the emergency exit on the ground. The assembly point is in the public square in front of Cast, beyond the fountain. Anybody with mobility issues should wait in the refuge area near the lift and use the intercom to call for assistance. This meeting will be recorded and published on the Council's website. By entering the Council chamber, you're accepting that you will be recorded and your images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If anyone intends to record today's meeting, please ensure that this does not disturb the conduct of the meeting. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off or switched to silent. Thank you. I will now commence the meeting. Item 1, apologies for absence. Have we received any apologies? No. Thank you. So, excuse me. Item 2, exclusions of the public and press. There are no exempt items on the agenda today. However, please note that when the subcommittee goes into deliberation to determine the decision, all public and press will be excluded from the meeting. They will then be brought back into the meeting to hear the subcommittee decisions. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No? Item 4, which is the application that we're here to hear. Application for a new premise licence, Pride Event, Townfield, Thorn Road, Doncaster DN1 2JS. We're here today to discuss an application for a new premise licence for Pride Event, Townfield, Thorn Road, Doncaster DN1 2JS. All parties have indicated that they wish to address the subcommittee will be given the opportunity to speak. The procedure we will be following is set out in the report. Has everybody had a copy of the report? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Can I now invite the licensing officer representative to introduce the item? Thank you.
Thank you. This hearing is to determine an application for a new premise licence in respect of Pride Event, Townfields, Thorn Road. The premises concerned are currently a public open space. The application seeks to licence the whole field for regulated entertainment and alcohol sales for consumption on the premises. The licence granted, if granted, will be restricted to a one-day Pride event annually. I can confirm that the application has been correctly advertised and that mandatory consultation has taken place. During the consultation period, 3 representations were received. These are shown in Members' Report Appendix E. Prior to the hearing today, additional conditions to the application have been volunteered, which are shown in Appendix B. I can confirm that all the required notices of the hearing have been given and all parties have been made aware of the procedure to be followed. At the hearing, both in the notes that accompany the notice of hearing and in the hearing papers, the options available to the committee when making its determination are detailed in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now ask the applicant to address the subcommittee. Whoever is speaking, if you could please identify yourself when you're speaking. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenny Dewsnap. I am the current chair of Doncaster Pride and founder of Doncaster Pride back in 2007. Sitting here with me is Andrew Hempsell. Andrew is the licence applicant and personal licence holder. I'll be speaking to you first, and then Andrew's going to say a few words at the end of my opening. Doncaster Pride is a registered charity and its workforce solely volunteers. It was formed in 2007 and has delivered successful one-day events every year since. In the first year, the audience was around 1,000, and last year, Pride saw around 18,000 day visitors to Doncaster. Many of these visitors stay in Doncaster, and it is the case that you will not get a hotel for Pride night if you don't book before Christmas. The economic benefits to Doncaster of an event this size are immeasurable. Doncaster Pride has become the single largest one-day event in Doncaster. It has become one of the most enjoyable days in the calendar for everyone, not just the LGBT community. And it has become one of Doncaster's biggest successes of the last 15 years. Doncaster Pride is regarded as one of the best free prides in the country and is now widely accepted as the best in Yorkshire and in the top 5 of prides in the north of England. It is compared to prides such as Leeds and Hull, and its reputation amongst the other 250 or so prides in the UK puts it very high on the list of everyone's favourites. The first Doncaster Pride was held in the marketplace in August 2007, and by 2009 had outgrown the square. It moved and moved again over a number of years as it repeatedly outgrew the space. These spaces include the land to the side of the stadium and Sir Nigel Gresley Square. Wherever Doncaster Pride has taken place, it has always considered the move carefully and mitigated any concerns. Doncaster Pride has delivered 17 one-day events and received just one complaint in all those years. In the last 2 years at Elmfield Park, not one complaint was received about parking, partly due to low numbers driving, suitable off-site nearby free parking and free buses. These will all be in place for this year. In every one of the previous 17 years, except for the online Pride held in 2020, the delivery of Doncaster Pride has been, in licensing terms, delivered using Doncaster Council's premises licence on the various areas used, with alcohol being licensed by the use of a single 10. Doncaster Pride applied for and was granted a 10 for this year's event back in September 23, a full 11 months before the date of the event on the 10th of August. We find ourselves here today to secure a full premises licence to deliver the event in 12 days' time, due to a change in the licensing requirements and a move away from the way we've done this for the last 17 years. In 2022 and 2023, Doncaster Pride was successfully held on Elmfield Park, and whilst the plan to move to Townfield coincides with the delivery this year of the nation's UK Pride, this move is not motivated by growth and isn't to enable the event to grow substantially larger than it's been for the last 2 years. Doncaster Pride's growth has been steady and organic over a long time. Doncaster Pride does no advertising of its event, and it isn't our intention to be the biggest. For us, success isn't about being bigger. Pride has looked to move for several reasons I shall now explain. The volunteers as a team are responsible event organisers, and it is the case that making Elmfield safe for our team, contractors and visitors during the build-up and on Pride Day was impossible. Year 1 we tried, year 2 we learned and applied the knowledge, and we still couldn't mitigate the concerns. Elmfield Park has to remain open as a park, and Pride needs to occupy most of its space. This meant no fences could be erected to protect the public and our team and contractors during the build. It meant there were considerable difficulties and challenges for the contractors on site trying to work in a live construction site that couldn't be closed off and fenced. We also suffered lots of antisocial behaviour during the build-up, and in particular overnight when it became impossible to protect what we'd built during that day. In 2022, we had the toilets kicked over every night and numerous thefts from site. And in 2023, someone attempted to set fire to one of the marquees and tried to remove the central pole from another, rendering it unsafe to use. Despite us having a small army of paid overnight security, distractionary tactics were employed, and the nuisance behaviours gave way to more sinister attempts to do real damage. Closing the park isn't an option. The loss of the amenity, the diversions away from the spaces people want to be in, the closing of entrances just doesn't work during the build-up and on event day. There are countless entrances, breaks in the hedge, gaps in the fence, far too many to manage out of the situation safely, leading to the public being inside the event site throughout the build-up, something we simply can't live with. On the day of the event, anyone wanting to use Elmfield Park for their own recreation couldn't avoid Pride. And those inside were passing alcohol, including glass bottles bought at the nearby off-licence, through the fence, breaching all the security measures we had in place. A move to Townfield allows us to deliver this event safely and securely, with a carefully constructed double perimeter fence around the site from the start. The space to be used is the centre area of the park only, avoiding with fenced boundaries the wildflower areas and protected trees, and located centrally to be as far away as possible from local residents. Doncaster Pride had already considered a number of mitigations during its planning. coming up with the best possible location to minimise noise nuisance, the best ways in and out of the wider site to avoid damage to the ground, the trees, and to position the stages to make the best of the prevailing wind conditions. Doncaster Pride has won awards for its environmental actions. These not required conditions, these are our own commitments to the land we occupy and the people we impose our event onto. They include, at substantial cost, thousands of these that I'm drinking my water out of, thousands of these which we will use to eliminate single-use plastic and reduce our overall waste. Doncaster Pride is also working with Doncaster Council's tree team on a special planting project for later in 2024. This part of the overall UK Pride year. We made a request to plant trees, and the notion of the Pride Pocket Forest is hopefully going to become a reality in October or November, a legacy to the environment as one of our 3 main objectives of our UK Pride year announced back in January this year. The Pride site. We will construct a site that has a double perimeter for safety, but the 3.1 metre gap between the 2 fences means nothing can be passed through to the inside. It means we have a sterile corridor that we can locate the generators and power cables to prevent running cables. Not because they're a trip hazard, because no responsible event organiser trails any cables. They either dig a trench in the grass and bury them, or they fly the cables through the trees. Neither do great damage, but we won't do either of those either. The sterile corridor is a surface route and a safe space for our cables. The space occupied is just less than 1/8 of the total area of Town Field, and in planning the event in this way, the rest of the park remains unaffected and open for use by all. There will be no loss of the public amenity during any part of the build-up, event or de-rig. The site is secure, the public can go about their usual business, and our crew and contractors are safe to build with no interruptions. We have a detailed arrival schedule for the vehicles onto site to allow the locked bollards to remain in place and not risk access to the park by anyone unauthorised to do so. All vehicles have already received detailed instructions about accessing, driving within and leaving the park for their own and users of the park's safety, as well as to create the least impact on the environment. Doncaster Pride has already issued letters to all city centre premises affected by the road closures for the parade, giving them ample warning of any disruption to their usual Saturday business. We have also delivered letters to some 470 residential properties within a quarter mile of Town Field. This letter details the plans in place for the event, including the build-up, and containing details of the mitigation measures we will have in place to ensure people understand the planning and how to contact organisers should they have any issues during the build-up or on the day. Doncaster Pride had already done all of this, but in the period since the Balloon Festival, we have revisited our plans. We've spoken to teams within Doncaster Council and been given advice about additional conditions we may need to consider, particularly relating to the trees. It is the case, as stated already, trees and their roots were already part of our consideration. John O'Neill, sitting to my right, is the Pride site designer and is an architect by day, and has brought to the team in recent years a level of understanding of the site build based on his years of building sites for his work projects. From the very start of this year's planning, we have worked to calculations for the site and its many structures to be at least 12 times the diameter of the tree trunk away from any tree. But, as said, within the last 5 days and since the Balloon Festival, a renewed commitment from the Pride team as a result, the Blue Badge parking has been moved slightly to take it from the 12 times diameter calculations we have been using to a blanket 12 metre exclusion for the secure structure vehicles and parking. This is not difficult to do and has already been done. The site will be lit with low-level LED from dusk to dawn, and patrols of security will ensure the fully fenced double perimeter isn't breached at night. On Pride Day, there will be strict entry conditions, including no glass, no alcohol, and bag checks will be in operation. No open or unsealed bottles will be allowed in, and none will be allowed out from the site. The stages are positioned carefully to be in the centre area, surrounded by avenues of trees, to provide an element of natural sound blocking. Pride has a noise and acoustics expert, Phil Williams, who has been the technical lead on sound for 15 of our 17 years. He has produced a full noise management plan which will not only work to Purple Guide recommendations, but Pride will also voluntarily implement sound checks for low frequency noise, something that isn't a legal requirement but can become a nuisance if not kept in check. Sound levels will be checked at the start of the day and hourly thereafter, and we will account for the regular ambient noise levels in this. Doncaster Pride may be an event organised for and by the LGBT+ community, but it is for everyone. The audience is a full mix of families, and approximately 50% of the attendees do not identify as being from the gay community. It is a truly inclusive event with all ages, religions, ethnicities and backgrounds coming together to enjoy a great free day out. Doncaster Pride works closely with South Yorkshire Police, who have said now for some years that they wish Pride was every week, because there's an air of friendliness and acceptance of all that permeates the entire city, and crime rates, incident numbers and police calls all reduce on Pride Day. We strongly believe that the conditions we have voluntarily suggested for this licence mean we can do everything in our power to deliver a safe and welcoming event to all, whilst protecting the environment of Townfield and not being a nuisance to the nearby residents. We have from the start developed a great relationship with the Townfield Residents Association, and they have played a part in the consultation around the event. They have asked questions, made suggestions, and together we've agreed a way forward. We have regular meetings with Alistair and Chris. The Residents Association will be at Pride as a group and have offered to support with the full final site litter pick after the event. Because whilst we are occupying only 1/8 of the actual space, we have made a commitment to ensure the entire park is returned to the way we found it. And if past history in Elmfield is anything to go by, it will be better than we found it. I'd like to describe, if I may, a situation from 2022 when a gentleman was seen regularly in the park during the build-up, taking photographs whilst walking his dog. Because he was wandering around and looking at a lot of the construction, I personally approached him mildly concerned. He stated that he was a local resident and he didn't approve, and he was taking photographs to prove we would make a mess of the park. On the Sunday after the event, when we'd almost finished the final fine litter pick, he came back. He approached me, stuck out his hand to shake mine. He said, "I must congratulate you. You were good to your word, and you have made this park look the best it's looked in years." He also went on to say that he'd observed the entire team, some 60+ volunteers per day, and that they'd worked extremely hard and that we should be pleased with ourselves. He also said he was deleting all of the photographs as he didn't need them. This is our commitment. Doncaster Pride is a free one-day event. It accepts the conditions suggested. Indeed, many of them are already part of our own plans, so almost don't need to be conditions, because we do as we say. It is in our interest to do so, of course, because we would like to be able to make Townfield our home for the future, growing the impact of the event for the community and the people of Doncaster, putting Doncaster on the map for the right reasons, and advocating inclusion and cohesion within our local communities. If I can now, I'd like to take a few moments to talk about the specific objections to the licence. I'll address them individually, and I'm minded to note for the record that there are barely any differences to these than those already considered and approved for the other events on Townfield. The objections fall into the headings of disruptions, noise, safety, loss of public amenity, vehicles, alcohol, curfew, congestion and parking. As already stated, Doncaster Pride has a noise management plan which it will adhere to. This had been advised by the Purple Guide and health and safety recommendations relating to exposure to noise. We will monitor the decibel levels and low frequency levels. They will be set early and we will take account of weather conditions on the day and background levels of sight. They will be checked hourly thereafter. As already mentioned, the stages will be positioned carefully and will sit in the middle of the site, a space that is lined by the trees, providing some kind of natural absorber to the sound. During build-up and de-rig, We will restrict activity to 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and event day timings are 11 a.m. start and the final performance finishes at 9:15, allowing us to clear the site of pedestrians and visitors by 10 p.m. Vehicles will access the site via suitable access gates that will be kept locked when not in use. They will drive on the paths where possible and movements on grass will be limited. Where this is necessary, vehicles will not drive within the 12-metre guidance of the trees, which can cause damage to the root systems. Vehicles will not drive in or through, and the event will totally avoid the wildflower beds. Equipment, including generators, will be completely surrounded by a double perimeter of Harris fence for security. This allows for the site build-up and de-rig to be completely safe for the public and contractors and allows safety for the event visitors on the day. Again, as previously stated, the site is an area of approximately 1/8 of Town Field and the rest of the park will be unaffected by the build-up or the event. All entrances will remain open. The park can be used in the normal way, apart from the fenced area, which is the event site. Last orders at the bar will be 9 p.m, which in our experience gives us sufficient time for the site to clear before the 10 p.m. curfew and limit of the applied licence. People won't be allowed to bring their own alcohol and will be served only in the on-site bar. This means the licensee will be responsible for appropriate alcohol consumption in the normal way. Drinks, bottles, cans or any vessels are not permitted to be brought in or taken out of the fenced area of the event. The only exception being one 500ml plastic bottle sealed water or soft drink. The info screens outside the site will carry messages at the end of the show to ask people to leave promptly and quietly to respect residents in the area. Site clean-up and litter pick will take place on Sunday, and Monday the site will be returned to Doncaster Council. There is a make good clause on the licence to occupy the council land, and this means anything that isn't right will be put right by Doncaster Council, and Doncaster Pride charged a fee to cover that work. As already stated, Pride has operated for 17 years in various sites, including 2 years in Elmfield Park, a similar residential area. In all the years of Doncaster Pride, there has not been a single complaint about parking and congestion. Although Pride is a large event, people generally don't drive to it. But we have a dedicated free car park for those that do, and Pride will instruct people to use it through advanced marketing and signage on the day. We will also place no parking signage on the estate fence along Townmoor Avenue to also try and appeal to those who believe the rules don't apply to them and they can ignore them and do as they wish. In addition, Pride hopes to see the parking enforcement provided by Doncaster Council during the Balloon Festival is repeated for Pride Day. It seems, however, sadly, even with enforcement, more formal restrictions to parking in the area don't give 100% compliance. Pride has also negotiated a free bus service, and this extends to any first bus on regular service routes from the interchange on all sides of Townfield. Where buses pass, people can ride for free. In conclusion, Pride has an exemplary history in all of its previous 17 years of hosting its event. It is a one-day event and organisers feel they have sufficient knowledge and experience to deliver a safe and friendly event for everyone involved. Pride has been on the end of negativity throughout our 18 years in operation, but this has never once been in relation to the way the event is delivered, rather born out of homophobia and discrimination towards the gay community. Being against the event or the team delivering it based on sexuality or gender has and always will be challenged. We are responsible organisers. We want to develop and grow our relationships with local residents and welcome their involvement in the event's future. Inclusion is what we strive for, and we are an open door to new volunteers, new suggestions, and anything to improve the event for the enjoyment of everyone into the future. I'd like to hand over, if I may, briefly, Chair, to Andy, who is the licence applicant and would be the licence holder on the day, to talk a little more specifically about the licence itself.
Good morning. My name's Andrew Hempsell, the Bar High Company. Just can't add a lot to what Jenny said, but I can talk about my company and the way we've operated for the last 12 years. We operate events throughout Yorkshire, Derbyshire and into Lincolnshire and have numerous licences, temporary event notices every year. in 12 years, we've never had one incident where we've had to call the police for any assistance. We are professional in what we do. I'm a personal licence holder, and I'm also a licensee of licensed premises in Thorn, Doncaster. We will, on site, operate Challenge 25. All our staff are trained in that. We will monitor through the day in relation to people attempting to buy drinks to supply them to underage people. If that is the case, we will inform security immediately. We will then remove the alcohol from anyone that we suspect, unless they can prove they are over the age. We'll remove it from them, and they will be monitored throughout the day. As I say, there's very little more I can add, but in all the events that we work with other organisations throughout the counties, I've got to be honest, Pride's event management plan and everything they have put forward, it's the best I've ever seen. Can't really add anything to it. I think they're very professional. They address all the problems that we've got. As Jenny said, we've also volunteered some additional conditions prior to the hearing today, which is in the pack, which I think covers any concerns that have been raised by any objectors. And that's basically all I think I can add at this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the subcommittee members if they wish to ask any questions in relation to the applicant's submissions. Yeah, Councillor.
Good morning. Can I ask you, I know it's a one-day event in August that you're applying for, but why have you actually applied for 7 days, Monday to Saturday, Monday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Why is that applied?
Thank you. When we put the licence in, because basically the day will change every year, but I think it does say in the licence application that it is limited to 1 day. Well, it does say that, yeah. So it's limited to 1 day, but it gives us the facility to move it throughout the month of August.
But on our understanding, previously, Pride's always taken place on a Saturday, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, at this, there is no intention to move it from the Saturday. It will be a Saturday in August, but we always consult with the racecourse about 15 months in advance of the date to make sure that they, although their fixtures are not known, they are experienced enough to be able to predict when the race meetings will be. We used to hold the event towards the end of August. We brought it forward to avoid clashes with the football season. So we have moved around a little, but yes, in answer to your question, Pride is a Saturday in August, and the licence application is for a Saturday in August. Usually the second Saturday, but not always.
I just can understand the objectors' fears that obviously it's giving you a licence to come on any day, any time. So it just wanted to batten that down.
Happy to have that clarification in the licence that it is a Saturday in August, a one-day event, a Saturday in August, but that date might move.
So those times.
I would say it's highly unlikely that Pride would ever take place on any other day than a Saturday. We all in agreement? Yeah? Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. One other, or a couple of other things to be fair. You're wanting the licence until 10 p.m, but you're stopping selling alcohol at 9 o'clock. Once is the last orders, will that be announced over the microphones from the entertainment just before? Are you going to get a mass surge at the bar, everybody wanting a drink last off? And also, why are you wanting the licence until 10 p.m. if your last orders are going to be 9 p.m?
I think for clarity, the 10 o'clock is our own curfew. We put that on the site anyway. We want the site to be quiet as best possible for 10 o'clock. Experience tells us that when we put the final act on the stage, which is scheduled to go on this year at 8:30 is the final act on stage, a 45-minute set from 8:30 to 9:15. When the headline act is on, there are very few people will go to the bar. So this is why we've brought the last orders. We won't announce the last orders, although we will advertise throughout the site on the day, or certainly at the bar, it will be advertised that last orders are at 9 o'clock. It tends to generally just peter out because as the entertainment on the main stage reaches the peak, if you like, with the headline act, people tend to stay at the stage and not go to the bar.
Can I just add something to that? In relation to announcing last orders, with my experience, as Jen has just said, by announcing its last orders does possibly create, like you said, a rush to the bar. So in experience, it's better to advertise that the bar will be closing at 9 o'clock. People know that in advance, and if they do require a drink, they will come to the bar. But by shouting last orders, as is predominantly known, it can cause a problem, so we wouldn't do that. It's better just to, if someone turns up at 9:05, just say, sorry, no, the bar closed at 9 o'clock.
Okay, thanks. I must commend you on your safety plan and everything in the documents. It's absolutely fantastic. Very detailed, you look very organised, well done. Where is the free parking going to be, please?
The free parking is car park C at the racecourse, which is just off the entrance to Sandalbeat on that side there. The reason that it's there and not the park and ride facility on by the what's the road there? Ledger Way. Thanks, Kath. The reason it's not the park and ride on Ledger Way is that there is a small craft fair taking place in the racecourse during the day, and we didn't want to conflict the parking arrangements for that event with ours. So the racecourse kindly offered us the use of car park C, which is on the Sandalbeat side.
Thanks. And for now, just one last one. You're saying that the sound levels are going to be checked every hour. Is that actually going to be recorded? Are you going to record that?
Yeah, there's a recording sheet available for anybody that wants to see it. It's not a secret. We routinely record the sound levels. There was a conversation last week at the Event Safety Advisory Group meeting where Doncaster Pride were invited to present to police, fire and ambulance service and various teams from within Doncaster Council, including the environmental health team there. They were happy with Phil Williams was on the call. Councillor Shaw, I know you met Phil last year. Phil was on the call last week for the Event Safety Advisory and went through in some detail the noise management, which doesn't there's mention of the noise management in the overall event safety management plan, but the noise management plan is a separate document, and they discussed it at some length. It will be recorded. It's taken on various points across the perimeter and of the site, but then we'll also go out to the extent of the perimeter of Town Field to the nearest residential properties. We'll also take account of the prevailing conditions on the day, so it can change. If I was to say now where we'd go to, it might not be that. But yes, we do monitor that and we do record it. And that will be the general dB levels, the decibel levels, and also the low frequency levels as well, which is the stuff that makes your doors rattle.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything from you? Anything from you there, Thomas?
Just a couple of little ones. How long are you expecting the rig and de-rig to take?
We're looking at starting on Wednesday. So initially it'd be fence the site as priority one, then bring in the larger structures, which will be marquees, etc. And that'll take from Wednesday through to Friday. As you can see in the plan, it's regulated between hours, so we're not there working through the night, creating any sort of undue noise. And then the plan is to take it all down on Sunday. So again, using the same hours, working as quick as we can. We've got a big team of volunteers coming in to help us. So by the close of play Sunday, it should be all gone, with a view of a final sweep on Monday for litter picking and the fine. Just double checking.
Thank you. Just looking at the site pictures, you said earlier that it was 18,000 that you got across like the whole day. Is that right? It doesn't seem very much. The distance from the stage to the bar doesn't seem very big on the pictures. Are you expecting where's the queue going, where the people are going to congregate? The site's very narrow in terms of. I get why you've done it to try and stay away from the trees and stay in the middle of the field and stuff, but it does seem a very narrow site. Where's the people going to flow and stuff like that?
There's actually a detailed crowd calculations as part of the event safety management plan, including the structures and the entire site. If you give me a second, I'll try to find the numbers from memory. The overall site, actually, because I won't find it that quickly. The overall site at its longest is just over 300 metres. At the widest point is just over 100 metres, about 110 metres. If you do crowd calculations based on the Purple Guide, we could, with no structures in that space, put something ridiculous like 64,000 people in that space. If we look at the crowd density calculations and the crowd flow calculations, which I've done myself and they are in here, the site, excluding all of the temporary structures, so if you draw a line around just the open areas of grass, not even the areas inside the marquees themselves, which will have people in them obviously, but if you draw a line around the whole of the area of the grass, we can get somewhere in the region of 14,000, I believe it, just under 14,000 people in at any one time. License application is not, and the event will hold no more than 10,000. That is our plan. We don't want any more than 10,000 people in there at any one time. We've geared up everything towards 10,000. That runs through the whole of the safety management plan. Looking at last year's numbers, the peak at any one time was 7,500. If we look at a growth of even 2,000 on that, that takes us to 9,500 at any one time, which is well within the crowd capacity and density and crowd flow and emergency evacuation figures that we're required to stick to. If we look to the site plan, there are also 12 exits in there that are over 6 metres in width, and again the calculations have been done for the emergency evacuation based on the numbers inside. So I think whilst it does look a long thin site and it does look quite narrow, it's huge. It really is quite big, and the flow is we believe is acceptable and has gone through that ESEG process and been signed off.
How many bar staff will be on? Is the one main bar, is that it? And how many bar staff will be on, and what do you expect for the queues and stuff like that to take place?
Okay, yeah, regarding that, one point I'd just like to mention before I answer your question is as well that with the traffic of people, the entrance itself is having a queuing system, so it's not going to be a bottleneck where people just turn up and suddenly you've got a mass of people, so there's a queuing system on externally to the fence site before they even get inside. In relation to the bars, we have 2 bars on site. We have a 100-foot bar in a marquee, and that has a one-way system to each individual bar. There will be 10 bars in there with a queuing system for in and out. So you get your drinks, you turn around, you're not faced by a wall of people, you can walk straight out. So we have that in the main bar. On that bar there is 15 staff. On the VIP area we then have 40 foot of bar in there as well, again with a queuing system. In there is 6 staff working. In addition to all these, we also then have ancillary staff, which are stocking fridges, waste management, washing cups, because the reusable cup, Jenny's got there. The whole idea is that they can keep it if they want. If they want a fresh one, we have stock of that, so we can take it off them, take it around the back, that gets washed and then gets put into use again at the end of the day. So yeah, and as I said previously, you know, this is what we do. I think we've learned as lessons over the years, and we know what we're doing and putting these systems in place.
Thank you. A few questions from me. Just a couple of bits. Obviously, it's not lost on us the potential economic benefits of Pride. However, it's not a licensing objective. Economic benefits are not a licensing objective. And just the other thing was you kind of mentioned that often complaints had been driven possibly by homophobia. I've had a number of complaints in, and I'd just like to give you assurances that the objections that have come in have been based around events, and obviously the previous event and this being the next event, big event on the town field. So I've received a number of complaints, but none of which have concerned me in the sense of it being anything against Pride or the event itself. Just wanted to just dig into the numbers a little bit. I think you said that on Elmfield Park, the maximum you'd add in was 7,000 at one point. Is that right?
7.5 at peak. Yeah, last year. Yeah.
I was just wondering how you knew that figure, given that it wasn't fenced off.
That's the difficulty. That figure is taken from an independent assessment from drone footage that has been done by a crowd management company, looking at the various shots that were taken at various points throughout the day. Without having a fenced site, which of course hopefully Townfield allows us to do that, and there's a robust system in place for counting people in and out, but without having a fenced site, with the number of breaks in the hedge and gaps in the fence, etc., it is impossible. So the figure, I think there's a tolerance on that figure of somewhere around 5%. So we've always gone with that 7.5 as being the best we've been advised from that drone coverage.
Okay, thanks. So I mean, you've kind of answered the second part of the question really, which was, have you got a robust system in place for numbers? So that's where I was leading to with that. So I mean, that's that covered off. We had a licensing committee meeting on the 9th of July, which set conditions around the general use of the site for events, which obviously is the foundation document for any event taking place. So condition 1 was the contact number should be made available to residents for the duration of the event. The contact number should be dedicated to this event with telephone operatives available. Now, you did say in your submissions that that's communicated to residents. I'm not aware that that's the case, that at this moment in time, and it may be that it's in process of being put in place. I'm not aware at this point in time that residents have had a dedicated phone number, and so I wanted to ask you, is that your understanding? Is that the case? And also, what is deemed to be the area of residents that should have access to that number? I mean, I have in mind Townmoor Avenue, Bennettthorpe, Thorne Road and Alderson Drive as the immediate roads that actually go round it. So, as you know, I live on Bennettthorpe and I've not received anything at this point. There is a little time to go, so I'm presuming it's in train.
The letters have gone. They were done by the Residents Association. We took their advice as to which streets should be included in the letters. We produced 470 copies of the letter, and we handed them to the Residents Association 2 weeks ago, before the balloon festival took place. They went out. And there is a phone number on them.
Okay, you may need to just check up on that.
Sure.
I mean, I think that, I guess, obviously it's voluntarily run, and there's, you know, you need a lot of volunteers. Obviously, you know, volunteers are not employees, and sometimes things slip through the net, don't they? It's quite a job sometimes managing volunteers. I think that, if I'm honest, it's not for them to advise on what streets should be leaflet. I think it is something that, you know, as an organiser and a licensing committee, we should be concerned about. Not that a residents' association decides who may or may not be impacted. That there's not any professional qualifications in terms of this. I do understand you wanting to use them in terms of, you know, to get the leaflet out. I've not come across anybody who's had it. That's not to say that they haven't, but it's something that you may want to look into and ensure that has actually happened.
I think what I'd like to suggest we do here is I can take forward a point to speak to Alistair and find out that all of those letters have been delivered, ask him where he's delivered them to, and if there are any then that are within the areas that you've just mentioned ought to be lettered and haven't been, we can reproduce some additional ones and get those out this week.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Condition 5 of that meeting said the event organiser for larger events should be responsible for additional parking enforcement. So this was conditioned on the 9th of July. I don't really want to kind of, you know, to talk about the balloon festival. However, you did mention the balloon festival in your presentation in saying that parking enforcement took place by DMBC. I'm not aware of any additional resource that was deployed on that weekend, other than the general, you know, Saturday deployment, and certainly nothing on the Friday evening. So it's an actual condition of the licence that event organisers take responsibility for that, as in, you know, it is expected there will be a requirement for further enforcement, and that shouldn't be at a cost to the council. So given it's a condition of the licence, have you made provision for additional enforcement to take place?
There has been a conversation about enforcement and the levels required, and Doncaster Council have been asked about providing officers to be able to do that would be paid for by Doncaster Pride. So that is to be completed and will be completed. If that condition is a condition of the licence for Pride, then that will be done, certainly.
Well, it's a condition of the event licence for the field, which underpins everything else. So it's not a choice for Pride or Balloon Festival or Kite Festival or any other event. It is a licensing condition, and non-compliance is non-compliance. So I understand that you are saying it needs to be dealt with, but it was conditioned on the 9th of July. And it says, point 17 of your document, of your application, from 2012, final version of the event management plan will be submitted to the Safety Advisory Group no later than 28 days before the first event day. So we're now looking at having to make adjustments beyond the date that you've said that a final plan will be in, which I do understand. It's sometimes required, you know, but I'm just seeking clarity.
Oh, sorry, 20. Yeah, so it's 20. Yeah, it's next. Well, no, that's the wrong date. I think you should say 2024. That's point 17. Could we just clarify? Well, it still should. So, just to clarify, so just just realised. So, point 17.
Point 17 on.
From 2025, the final version of the event management plan will be submitted to the
no later than 28 days before the first event day. Should that be 2024 in that point 17? I read it. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's been done anyway. That's a completed action anyway, because the event safety management plan was presented in its final version.
but it's not in its final version.
No, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So it was presented in its final version, but there have been some changes. I think, Andy, did you want to pick that one up?
Yeah, just going back to what you're saying about the licence that was granted earlier this month. I'm under the understanding that this is a complete new licence application, and because it has entertainment on it as well as alcohol sales, where the other licence that's been granted, the MBC, is purely entertainment licence, and this is a complete separate premises licence. So any of the conditions that have already been put on the other licence, if they need to be added to this, that...
No, that's not correct.
Is it not? Thank you.
Okay, so just moving forward on that. So 5 is a condition which obviously needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to hear that you've had these conversations, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a deal breaker, should it, to kind of get this over the line with what we're looking to achieve. And I think you understand why we're looking to achieve. If residents are not inconvenienced as much when these events take place, then we will have less complaints, and consequently everybody's life becomes easier and more, and things become more palatable to residents. So these conditions were there to try and steer so we can have successful events that are less inconvenient to local residents. So now we're agreed that needs to be brought into play, and you have started the process. When is it likely that the final submission of the events plan will be with the Safety Advisory Group?
I think it's a note to self, really, on this one, is don't be the last event, because we've got everything else coming down the line. So we keep changing it. But I've made a commitment to the Safety Advisory meeting, which was last Thursday, Wednesday, can't remember. I made a commitment that I would get it to them as soon as I can following this meeting today, because obviously mindful of the fact that there may be additional conditions or things that we might need to build into the plan. I've also received some documentation from a couple of other teams within Doncaster Council around additional things that they might want us to consider. So I need to, following this meeting today, spend some time today and possibly tomorrow making sure that all those things are sorted out and put in place. So in answer to your question, I would hope that certainly by the middle of this week, and certainly by close of business on Wednesday, we will have the final version of everything approved. It may well be sooner, but I would say at the very, very latest of close of business Wednesday.
So if just from a point of view of being pedantic as a licensing committee, we should condition that being by Friday, which is a couple more days than you said you need, then if we were minded to do that, would that be, yeah, it's not going to cause you too much trouble?
I would be very happy with that condition, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay, so we've covered that off. So this is something that will be dealt with through the street scene and the tree team, and I'm sure I know that this conversation is taking place. I just want to be assured that it is going to be necessary for heavy vehicles to move between the trees. There's because the paths there are tree lined. It's unavoidable, isn't it? And obviously, where there has been passing over at the last event, there's substantial impact in which we're looking to deal with. So I just want to be assured that there will be the utmost care taken around the route protection zones, and that everything that street scene, the tree guys recommend, will be implemented and put in place.
Yeah, they're the experts, and we will take notice of anything that they advise us, certainly. And thank you for understanding that, yes, sometimes, you know, you have to move vehicles in certain places, but there are ways of doing that to avoid, even if it means taking a longer route round. I think what I need to look at, and will do in time for the agreed final submission that we've just had, is look at all of the additional conditions, because when putting together in a safety management plan, what I have to do is look at everything as a whole. So if we look at the 4 licensing objectives, for example, I need to look at the impact of, let's say we've already said we can move the blue badge parking quite easily. We're moving it a couple of feet away, so it's in the zone that is not coloured as part of the tree protection. It was only over by a couple of feet, if that. So that can be easily moved. There are a couple of other things. There's one thing in particular that I've seen in there that I haven't really been able to understand at this stage, and that was a request to change the access in of vehicles from Townmoor Avenue to Bennettthorpe. I do need to take some time to look at that, and I will work with colleagues in street scene and within the tree team, because I'm also under expectations from security, police. We've done counter-terrorism assessments, and the routes are I don't mean tree routes, I mean vehicle routes, and the access points are put in place for very particular reasons for the safety of the people in the event. So suggesting to move them, I need to check that. Do you know what I'm saying? I can't compromise one for another. And whilst the tree protection zones are absolutely, you know, they are sacred to us, and as they are to you and as they are to the tree team, we will absolutely do that. But that one section in the report that was sent, or in the email that was sent to me very late last week around moving some of the vehicles to enter the site via Bennettthorpe, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. I really do need to look at that in some greater detail. I don't think that has any impact on the environment. I think it's just looking at the density of movement of vehicles. But when you look at the load-in schedule for the event, it's spaced over 3 days anyway. So using the one entrance is not going to be an issue. And we have to move it anyway. If the road conditions become bad, if the weather turns, I will give authorisation to move an entrance based on assessment on the ground on the day. So I think the rigidity of that, you must bring all vehicles in this way, I really do need to explore further with them.
I obviously am not aware of the specifics of that. I think it's more than likely, and I'm only guessing, that it's more to do with the canopies and the types of trees. Some trees lend themselves to having the canopy lifted more than others do. So it may be that, but that is a guess. I would say my main concern is we are going to have to drive over the route protection zones, and it is, you know, we must ensure that there is trackway down where we do, and we minimise the points, you know. So if in some ways 3 points of entry are better than one, you know, but each one would require some trackway down. I would just caution from another point from the Bennettthorpe entrance, in that there's a cycle path up there, and the visibility when turning in with anything other than a car is not good. So it is possible to cut across that trackway that cycleway without having very good visibility of cyclists approaching. So I would say that is another thing just to have some consideration over. But I'll trust that you're going to work that aspect through, and you know that will go into the plan no later than Friday. I think I accept that's a lot's happened in the last couple of weeks, and I accept that we're moving forward and we're going to move forward in a positive way. So I'm sure that will be negotiated and we'll get to a you know reasonable compromise on that. So I think the only other thing I was going to say really, and it's not you know it's not a big deal in some ways, but I think that it is the perception out there, and the perception that sometimes feeds the sort of complaints that comes in. And you said at the beginning that you know you were happy with the size of Pride, and this is you know. But I just quickly Googled, you know, sort of Doncaster Pride, and I put bigger and better, and I've found several, you know, visit Doncaster, bigger and better, you know, Pride events, bigger and better, Doncaster Free Press, bigger and better. Now, I'm not saying you've sown that narrative, and these are other people. When we talk about people's complaints, it's often about perceptions, isn't it? So it's just a point, really. It's not a kind of something that's going to impact on our decision, but it's just a point that members of the public will see these things and will make presumptions in terms of the extent of the licence applied for and the things that are said in the press and on websites. So it's just a point, really, that I wanted to make. I think from my point of view, I'm finished. Councillor Chapman, do you want to come back in?
Just one more I've thought of from the bar situation. Are you going to have radio communication with security from the bars?
Yes, we are. There's, I think, 25 radios on site, 5 of which will be on with my staff. We will have a dedicated channel, but we will also have access to the security channel should we need to get in touch with them at any point.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, have we all done with any questions? Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, you mentioned in your presentation about noise and monitoring of noise. I'm just cautious that the bar will possibly take electricity on the Friday by generator. I'm just wondering how, and I suppose it might be for the architect to say about the placing the generator and the noise nuisance. I know it's probably low level noise, but it still can create a nuisance. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Yeah, just to clarify, any equipment that the bar has in relation to generators are all the latest super silent generators, fully enclosed, so noise from the generators will be minimal.
Okay, are we all done there? Yeah. Okay, Brill, that's great, thank you. We were kind of expecting some interested parties. I would at this point be asking them if they wanted to address the subcommittee, but I don't believe we have any interested parties. I will now, no, sorry, skip that. So all parties have now had the opportunity to address the subcommittee. And I would ask you if you would like to summarise your submission, if you want to add anything or draw a summary for us to sort of consider.
Yes, in summary, I think it's become very clear today, or hopefully has become very clear today, that Doncaster Pride, whilst a team of volunteers, are very careful and very considerate and very considered in the way in which they deliver their event. We've been very fortunate over a number of years to have the help of Doncaster Council to deliver events in the Market Square, in Sir Nigel Gresley Square and Elmfield. And I think this is a process of all of us growing better at what we do. We are more than happy to look at any suggestions made to us in terms of making the event better for everyone, and we look forward to receiving your decision soon. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've now heard, obviously, from the applicant, nothing from any interested parties, but we've heard all those people who want to speak to us. So we will now go into private session to deliberate the merits of the application. Once we've reached a decision, you'll be invited back into the meeting for the committee to present their decision. If you are unable to remain, would you please indicate now? I presume someone can come back. Is that, yeah? Okay. So you never know how long these things are going to take. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but we may be a little bit of time. So look forward to seeing you back in a little while. Thank you very much. If you'd kindly leave the chamber. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I don't think we were too long there. It probably felt like quite a long time to wait outside. But I've got the decision of the licensing subcommittee. So I'll read out the actual decision. So we have considered the application for a premise license for the Pride event at Townfield, Thorne Road, Doncaster. We have taken into account the written representations made, the evidence presented today, the steps that are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, the Home Office guidance and our statement of licensing policy, and have decided to grant the application subject to the following conditions. The final safety plan to be submitted to the Safety Advisory Group no later than Friday the 2nd of August 2024. The sale of alcohol on the site will be prohibited before 11 AM and cease at 9 PM. The licensing will be limited to no more than one event to be held once per year during the month of August. The subcommittee also wishes to remind the applicant that it is an existing condition of the Townfield premises licence that the event organiser will be responsible for additional parking enforcement and that regulated entertainment cannot take place beyond 9:30 PM. We have made our decision for the following reasons. The subcommittee heard from the applicant's representative, Jenny Dewsnap, that Pride is a registered charity and the festival has been successfully run in Doncaster every year since 2007, most recently at Elmfield Park in 2022 and 2023, where they received approximately 7,500 visitors. It is no longer achievable to hold the event at Elmfield Park due to issues and limitations around fencing, security issues which occurred overnight and a lack of control over alcohol consumption as people could purchase alcohol nearby and pass glass bottles through the fence. For an event to be held at Townfield, we have heard that this will take place on around 1/8 of the overall site of the Townfield. There will be a double perimeter fence which will stop alcohol and bottles being passed inside and also provide a sterile corridor for cables and equipment. There will be no glass allowed on the site and bag checks will be in operation. The site will also be lit by LED from dusk till dawn. In addition, trees and their roots are part of Pride's consideration. Site designer John O'Neill has been brought into the team in recent years. Pride have worked calculations for any structures to be 12 times the diameter of the tree and blue badge parking. As I'm not quite sure that quite makes sense, but I think we know where we are. Structures be 12 times the diameter of the tree and blue badge parking has been moved to 12 metres from any tree. The Residents Association also took part in the consultation for the event. They will be at Pride and will support the litter pick after the event. In addressing objections, specifically disruption, noise, safety, loss of amenity, congestion and parking, the applicant's representatives told the subcommittee that noise and acoustic expert Phil Williams has been the technical lead for around 15 years. Pride have a noise management plan where they will monitor decibels and low frequency levels every hour and take into account weather conditions on the day. Any noise level recordings will be available to those who wish to see them. All generators will be super silent generators and the stages will be positioned in the centre of the site, lined by trees to provide natural absorption of sound. The final performance will finish at 9:15 PM with the site being cleared of visitors by 10 PM. Sales of alcohol will cease by 9 PM. There will be access gates to the site which will be locked when not in use. Vehicle access to the site will be limited and any vehicles which do not need to drive on the site will not drive into it or through any of the wildflower beds or within 12 metres of the trees. The subcommittee we're still concerned that there will be unavoidable use of heavy vehicles on site and we're assured by the applicant that the council's tree team will be consulted on any potential routes to ensure that trees and their roots will be protected in accordance with the best standard practice. Information screens will be in place asking people to leave promptly and quietly, and the site clean-up and litter pick will take place on Sunday and into Monday. As a clause of the site licence, Doncaster Council will carry out any work not done by Pride, and Pride will be charged for the cost of this. There will be no parking signage on the Townmoor Avenue, and there will be a free bus service provided by First Travel South Yorkshire, and a free parking area is available at Car Park C at the racecourse near the entrance to Sandal Beat. The subcommittee also heard from Andrew Epshall from the Bar Hire Company, who operate events in Yorkshire, Derbyshire and Lincolnshire. They have operated events for 12 years and have never had to call the police for any assistance. They will operate Challenge 25 and all staff are trained in that. The sale of alcohol will also be monitored to ensure that drinks are not being given to underage people. We noted that Andrew says that Pride Management Plan is the best he has ever seen and feels it addresses all the potential issues. There will be 25 radios on site with dedicated channel for bar staff and access for bar staff to contact the security staff by radio if required during the event. Whilst the applicant has applied for a licence which covers a period of 7 days, it clarified that the event will only take place one day in August. Historically, the event has always taken place on a Saturday, and it is highly unlikely that Pride would take place on a day and any other day other than the Saturday. When asked why a licence was required until 10 p.m, when the sale of alcohol will cease at 9 p.m, the subcommittee were told that this is Pride's personal curfew. In their experience, this will allow time to clear the area. The final act, which is scheduled to start at 8:30 p.m, will end at 9:15 p.m. The last order time will be advertised during the day. Nearly there. The subcommittee have considered the written representations of the objectors. In particular, we appreciate the concerns around noise levels, consumption of alcohol, safety issues from large numbers of people, and car parking in residential areas. The subcommittee were concerned about the distance between the bar and the stage and where customers would congregate and flow. Pride referred to their detailed crowd calculations in their safety plan based on the Purple Guide guidance. The site excluded the temporary structures would allow for 14,000 people at any one time. This licence application is limited to no more than 10,000 people, well within the calculations. These calculations have also considered the possibility of an emergency evacuation, and the crowd numbers are within an acceptable limit. A robust system of counting visitors in and out of the festival is in place. The applicant's representative assured the subcommittee that a contact number has been communicated to residents 2 weeks ago by the Residents Association, and on the advice from the Residents Association as to which street should be provided with a number. It was raised that some residents had potentially not received these letters. The subcommittee requested further letters to be sent out to residents of Townmoor Avenue, Bennettthorpe, Thorne Road and at Alderson Drive, where these areas are adjacent to town fields. Assurances were given that further letters would be sent out ahead of the event, specifically to residents in these areas. The subcommittee members are sympathetic to the objectors' fears, but commend Pride's safety plan and felt that the application was detailed and comprehensive both in the written submissions and on the representations made today. Having carefully considered the application and the objections, the subcommittee are satisfied that the plans in place by the applicant can successfully promote the licensing objectives. So, that went on a little bit longer than I thought. I did speak to Marie Claire and say, can we cut it down to 2 pages, but she was having none of it. Well, you did write it all up, so yeah. Well, actually, I think David did more of it in the end. But anyway, we've read out our decision as a subcommittee, and so I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance, and I will now close the meeting. Thank you very much.